On June 23, 1985, a bomb detonated on board Air India Flight 182 en route from Montreal, Quebec, Canada to New Delhi and Bombay via London Heathrow. The plane crashed into the waters off the southern coast of Ireland, killing all 329 passengers and crew aboard. This tragedy still stands as the largest act of mass murder in Canadian history. Suspicion for the bombing quickly came to rest on a group calling itself Babar Khalsa, a militant Sikh separatist group, whose members included Talwinder Singh Parmar, Inderjit Singh Rayat, Ripudaman Singh Malik, Ajaib Singh Bagri, and Surjan Singh Gill. It was later to emerge that Parmar and other members of the Babar Khalsa sect had been under surveillance by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or CSIS, in the weeks leading up to the attack. CSIS surveillance of the Babar Khalsa sect included physically trailing suspects, as well as wiretapping their phones, resulting in hundreds of hours of taped conversations between the main suspects in the Air India bombing. Incredibly, the vast majority of these wiretaps were erased by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service before they could ever be used against any of the suspects in a criminal proceeding. This resulted in the acquittal of Malik and Bagri in the so-called Air India trial, which ended in March of 2005. Canadians were shocked and appalled by the fact that over $100 million of taxpayer money had been spent in a 20-year investigation that had resulted in the conviction of only one man in connection with the bombing, Inderjit Singh Rayat. Responding to political pressure, Prime Minister Stephen Harper appointed the Air India Inquiry in 2006 to look into why the investigation had been so badly bungled. It didn't take long for the inquiry to uncover some startling and troubling findings.
More astounding revelations of the Air India inquiry today, as the picture of what happened in the days leading up to the bombing grew more disturbing. The inquiry heard from two witnesses, both with stories of a high-level CSIS expert who seemed to know an Air India plane would be brought down, that it was only a question of when. And both recalled their horror when just a few days later it happened. Terry Malewski reports.
Surprises are now normal at this inquiry, but this was extraordinary. One of Canada's top lawyers testifying that he thought CSIS had prior knowledge of the Air India bombing.
I was greatly upset. I said, holy expletive, they knew. They knew.
It all started here, poolside at a California hotel during a pause in a terrorism case. Chatting in deck chairs, Graham Pinos said a top CSIS official told him that Sikh extremists would try to attack a plane.
I have an absolutely clear recollection of the event and the circumstances. It was something that shocked me. An element of Sikhs was in the Indian community in Canada, and that he perceived them as being dangerous and they're likely to bring a plane down.
He was the head of counter-terrorism at CSIS headquarters in Ottawa, Mel Deschênes, and Pinos said he met Deschênes again 3 weeks after the bombing and was amazed that he seemed to know where the bomb was placed.
He knew within that 3-week period of the damage and where the bomb had been placed in the aircraft.
Pinos did not say Deschênes told him he knew details of the plot beforehand, only that he seemed to know. And another lawyer who was in California for the same case told the same story.
Mr. Deschênes advised me that he had to leave.
Did he give a reason as to why he had to leave?
He had received a call from Canada. There was an urgent problem with Sikh extremists in Vancouver, and he had to leave to go to Vancouver immediately.
Again, that was before the bombing. Afterwards, she said,
my immediate reaction was, even when they know something's going to happen, they can't stop it.
MacDonald did not say Deschênes talked about a bomb or a plane, but she insisted he knew something.
My reaction was exactly the same as Mr. Pinos. Holy shit, they knew, they knew, they knew.
Why were CSIS working on the threat days before the bombing, but unable to prevent it from taking place? Why was the wiretap evidence destroyed? Why have 23 years of investigation provided only one conviction on one count of manslaughter in connection with the largest mass murder in Canadian history? The startling answer to these troubling questions may come from this document. Entitled Tab 89, it contains the transcripts of RCMP interrogations of Ajaib Singh Bagri in October of 2000. In one passage, RCMP Staff Sergeant Jim Hunter tells Bagri the following about Surjan Singh Gill, who inexplicably pulled out of the Babar Khalsa group just 3 days before the bombing took place. Yep, Surjan trying to back out. Now, why is he trying to back out? Cold feet? There's been some damage control already because Talwinder knows that he's trying to back out. And of course, why is he trying to back out? Well, because his CSIS agents have told him to back out. They told him to get out of there, that things are happening, and you can't be seen as part of that. In a transcription from the interrogation of Ripudaman Malik from that same Tab 89 document, Staff Sergeant Don Adam of the RCMP tells Malik that the wiretaps of Parmar and others were destroyed to cover up CSIS' role in the bombings. And you know, if you were a policeman, why would a government agency destroy the very tapes that would, of Mr. Parmar's? Why would... Can you think of why? Perhaps if your agent was right in the middle of it, and then it happened, and now you were all going to look horrible, you might have a reason to cover that up, wouldn't you? If true, the implications of these RCMP statements are troubling. Surjan Singh Gill was not an incidental player in the Babar Khalsa group. In fact, he was one of its founding members, and his name was on the documents which incorporated the group as a religious society in British Columbia. Then, 3 days before the bombing, he dissociated himself from the group. Then, in September 2000, just weeks before the arrest of Malik and Bagri, and the interrogations which admitted his role as a CSIS informant, Surjan Singh Gill fled Canada, never to return. If the RCMP's own officers are right, and CSIS in fact had a mole working inside the terrorist group which carried out the worst terrorist atrocity in Canadian history, what does this tell us about Canadian counter-terrorism intelligence? What does it mean that CSIS officials were talking about problems with Sikh extremists who wanted to bring down a plane in the week before the bombing took place? Why did CSIS erase hundreds of hours of wiretap evidence that could have been used to convict the main suspects of the bombing? If the system was blinking red, and so much was known about the group and their intentions, why were basic security steps not taken to ensure that unclaimed luggage would not be put on board an Air India flight? These are questions that every concerned Canadian citizen must be asking their elected representatives.
My reaction was exactly the same as Mr. Pinos. Holy shit, they knew, they knew, they knew.